All right, guys, let's talk about the deadlift. This is probably the most obvious bit of, basic Western strength and conditioning that we can train right away, and that very obviously applies directly to picking up heavy motorcycles off the ground. When we train the deadlift, we say that we're training the posterior chain. So we're training the backside. Most people tend to be front side dominant. And so one of the beauties of hip hinging, or one of the essential reasons why we need to incorporate it into our training oftentimes, is to balance the front and the back. And obviously, if you're bending over and picking something up, it's a very backside dominant activity just in its nature. So when we say posterior chain, primarily I mean hamstrings, glutes, erectors, and then there certainly can be lat and scapula involved. All freestanding weightlifting is trunk, right? So the trunk is definitely firing in a very serious way in the deadlift, just like it is in the squat. So that's what we're doing when we're hinging at the hip or training the deadlift. In terms of your stance, I like to say that hip hinging is done at hip width and squatting is done at shoulder width, and the two overlap. But it's just a simple way to think about your stance, your basic stance for a squat, and your basic stance for just a standard hip hinge or deadlift. Before we pick up the weights, let's practice making the shape with just the body, and this is exactly how I would do it with a client. So we take our stance, which is hip width, okay? The shoulders are down and back. I'm gonna brace the midline. I'm gonna take a big breath and pull my belly button and my spine together with all the muscles of my trunk. That's what I mean by brace the midline. So breath, pull the belly button and spine tight, then the hips go back, okay? 1, 2, 3, toe touch, flat foot, driving from the heel, stand, squeeze the glutes, okay? You'll see that my knees are soft, but that's about it. All of the flexion is occurring at the hip. That keeps it in the hamstrings and not so much in the quads, okay? Which is what we want if we're really trying to isolate the posterior chain. So rather than bending at the knees to lower, I am sending the hips back, loading the hamstrings. The knees are soft, but that's about it for the knees. Everything else is occurring at the hip. This is new for people. For a lot of people, if you don't have a strength training background, but this is how we correctly hinge at the hip. And if it makes you nervous to lift with your back, then one answer to that is to, of course, make sure you're making the correct shape and just having a very small dose in the beginning and seeing how you respond. But you can also do it with no weight at all until you're satisfied with how you look in the mirror, and then you can just put 5 pounds in your hands. And then you can put 10 pounds in your hands, and you can put 15 pounds in your hands, and so on and so forth. But I suspect if you're already picking up heavy motorcycles, we'll be a little past that. So anyway, dumbbells are the way that I would typically show this lift or teach this lift. They're very accessible, and they're a nice, uncomplicated implements to work with relative to a barbell, for instance, which I would say is a little more technical, and people don't always have access to it in the first place. But we'll cover that. So I've got my dumbbells here, okay? When I pick weight up, I don't want to be distal if I can avoid it, right? I want to be proximal. Ideally that weight is right on my midline, then I brace, pick it up, right? When I'm done deadlifting, brace, set it down, right? That's ideal. Sometimes I've got to pick things up that are less than ideal. If this falls over inverted on the side of a mountain, and depending on the footing, I might not be able to get as proximal as I need to, but I'm sure going to try and get down close to maximize efficiency, but also just to take care of myself. So when we're in a training environment, we always try and make it ideal, even though it's not always ideal out there in the real world. So nothing changes based on the model I just showed you, okay? Big breath, shoulders down and back, hips go back. 1, 2, 3, stand, squeeze the glutes. Big breath. Brace the midline, pull the belly button tight to the spine. 1, 2, 3. Very flat-footed, driving through the heel. Stand, exhale, squeeze the glutes, right? Big breath. Hold. 1, 2, 3. Stand, squeeze the glutes, exhale, okay? When I'm done, big breath, set the weights down, and I'm out. Let's revisit the basic shape real quick because I'm realizing that I wanted to talk briefly about spinal extension and flexion. So when you do a hip hinge, it's important that you can demonstrate, that you understand and you can demonstrate spinal extension, especially on this kind of stiff-legged Romanian style that we're doing here, which we're doing to isolate the backside, the hamstrings and the erectors. So spinal extension, when I close the hip, the pelvis is tipped forward, and I have this nice, the shoulders are down and back, the scapula are active in retraction, and I have this nice concave shape, very slight, no worse than flat, right? But sometimes a slight concave expression. So you can just bend over and put your hands on your knees and practice the motor control. Go into flexion, which is kind of like this cat-cow thing. If I were on all fours, I'd show you. Well, I guess you could probably see it in the frame. But you can practice this prone like this, cat-cow, right? And you go back and forth between flexion and extension. You want to be able to do that, and you want to have a handle on that before you start hip hinging with weight, okay? Then in a more dynamic form, you practice the same. Now you have the motor control and you can express extension. So now you just make the basic shape while expressing that extension through the spine, okay? Then when I'm ready, I take some weight that I'm comfortable with, and I do 3 or 4 sets, 8, no more than 12 reps, 3 or 4 sets. So now the dumbbells are at my sides, and I just maintain that same shape. Okay? So those are just the basic concepts around the physical execution of the deadlift. But I would say very generically, very simply, hip hinging once a week, forcing a linear progression. Start a weight that you're comfortable with. You can start a very small dose, 3 sets of 8, done, see how you respond, very lightweight if you are more conservative in your approach to this. And then as you get more comfortable for a while, you can add a 4th set. Usually I top my beginner folks out at probably 10 reps in the deadlift. And then as they progress in their strength journey, a lot of 6 to 8 rep schemes. And then if they're advanced or I've worked with them a lot and I'm comfortable, then we can do heavier, like 5 rep maxes and 3 rep maxes and 1 rep max expression of strength. But I would say in the beginning, when you're just starting, kind of that 8 to 10 rep range to build volume and familiarity, and 3 to 4 sets 1 time a week. It's a great place to start. Hit me up in the comments if you have any questions, guys, and we'll see you for the next video. Okay, take care.